All right. So all that said, thanks, guys. So we're going to talk about the pregame today. And Herbert and I kind of put some thoughts together here. And really before we get started, I think everyone here has been asked to, if you're an R, to join this. So that means that you guys are kind of the leaders of the association, and there's more responsibility that falls on you as the R. So the difference that Herbert and I want to kind of present to you guys is, how do you take that next step to be the R that you can be, like the best R you can be, and kind of set yourself apart from everybody else as far as kind of what you're doing and how you're managing the game. So with all that said, Herbert, you want to walk them through a little bit of what we're going to talk about? You're on mute.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Like Trey said, everybody in this meeting is ours, so we know the game. It's right now. This is a part of the thing we want to do to make sure that you be the best R you can be, and be a flexible R. And that's gonna, as we talk through this presentation, you're gonna see it's not gonna be canned things like step 1, step 2, step 3. It's going to be a fluid thing based on a lot of factors that you're going to be presented throughout before the whistle blows for the face-off. So we're going to talk a couple things about pregame day communications, things you can talk about before the game even starts with your crew and other personnel that we're going to talk about. Another topic we want to talk about is how you're going to tailor your pregame. It's going to be it's a dynamic thing. It's not unfortunately, with GLOA, these are high school and JV games. You're not doing a big MLL game where you're flying into a city and staying there, I assume, Trey, the night before and having dinner and getting together with a big old elaborate pomp and circumstance pregame before you go out there and do a ball game. It's going to be different, much different than that. It's going to be driving down the road probably 65, 70 miles an hour and making that turn on 2 wheels to get into that school. So we're going to show you ways in where you need to tailor your pregame toward the situation that you have at hand. And also, adapting your pregame. We want to get more to your pregame is not just right before face-off. You're going to do some things during the game and post-game that's going to make you to that next level R to help develop the next officials that you're working with. So that's some of the things we want to talk about tonight concerning the pregame.
Cool. All right. With that said,
before we get started too, this is an open dialogue meeting too.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some good heads in here. So you guys, as we walk through this, if y'all want to chime in, you got questions, stories, whatever you got, feel free to. We want to make this as open as we can. So with that, really what we want to start off with is talking about, all right, you got the assignment. Now what do I do, right? I've got the assignment. I've accepted as the R. And the first thing we want to hit home with, and everybody needs to see this, is this year we're making it as the board. We decided, because of COVID and all of the different variables that are out there because of the pandemic, that it's really the referee's responsibility to make sure all the ducks are in a row for the game day. So we're going to put that on all of you guys as you accept your assignment as the R. That's your key to, all right, now I've got to go contact the coaches for the game. Make sure that you've got that already open line of communication in case there's a cancellation, a change, COVID happens to the team and they can no longer make it. All those things are kind of falling upon you. And within that, you also have your communication to the crew and the assigners, right? And Herbert, you want to kind of touch on any of this?
Just it's going to be a dynamic thing. It's going to be new to some of you. The old adage of waiting on the umpire to call you, those days are gone. That R comes with the big thing, responsibility. So let's just make sure you I know it's hectic. There's you're going to get a lot of games coming across your arm, especially if you open to do a lot of ball games. To try to come up with a system where you can keep a technique or a flow to make sure you're notifying the proper teams, the proper crews, giving them the right times to that bandwidth so you can get those tasks done.
And so, guys, you'll see here that I've got a couple bullet points on what you're saying or what you're trying to find out when you email these guys, right? So when you're emailing the coaches, you're trying to get all those details that you need. Whether and especially something as I've gotten more and more experience, I definitely will email and ask if there's a parking area or something like that. Think ahead of ways that you can get around things by just simply asking a question to the coach. Hey, coach, is there an area that we can park that will get us through the stadium without walking through the crowd? Or is there an area that will be secluded enough to be able to do a pregame? Those are definitely some questions that you can pose. The other things obviously are, confirm the time. Hey, and some of this is just, one sentence. Coaches, I've got this game scheduled per the arbiter at Saturday at 3 p.m. at Lovett. Can you please confirm that both of you agree that the varsity will play at 3 p.m. at Lovett? Because I'm sure some of you have gotten this before where you show up to a game and, it doesn't happen very often, but occasionally you show up and maybe you're supposed to do the varsity game at 7 and then all of a sudden they said, no, varsity was at 5:30. Now I'm doing the JV game. Well, all of that kind of could have been flushed out if you had sent that email originally. It kind of stated some of these details of what you have and asking them to also confirm it back with you that I've got this game at this time. And when I send that email out, guys, I'm going to send that out with my crew. I'm not going to do anything without my crew. And also there's a certain level of transparency here with the coaches, but I like to include both coaches on that email. I'm not going to try to talk to one coach and then not include the other. Go ahead and start the whole process off by copying both coaches and being transparent with both of them that, hey, this is what we're communicating. Everybody's agreed upon the times, and here we go, and let's move forward. And then after that, we get with the crew. Obviously, this is the one that we're all used to, right? The pregame, what time are we going to do it? This year's going to be a little different, right? We got a COVID and the pandemic. So, if you're not familiar with your crew or you got a different game and you need to get to it, don't be afraid to set up a Zoom call. And if you guys need access to Zoom, I'm sure we can figure out how to provide you guys, a meeting to be able to do that. And then the other thing is be in touch with your assigners. This goes for, after the game too. Assigners like to know what's going on, especially if you've got somebody that's new and needs feedback and everything. Sometimes it's easier for the assigners to take the collective feedback over the group, over the, first 3 or 4 games of the season and give that person the feedback of, hey, you were really strong here. Here's some areas that you need to work on, instead of just kind of going in and necessarily hammering a kid, or vice versa, going in and pumping them up so much that they think that they're the next hot stuff, right?
Hey, Trey, if I could offer something on communication and the emails.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This is Nick. The arbiter is set up that you get an email that has the information on it, who the coaches are, your crew, location, what kind of game it is, varsity, JV, and where it is. I found that email is a great email to start with, to be able to send to everyone. This is what arbiter says. Do you agree? Have you changed the time? Did you change the field or anything like that? And then, like you were saying, you're copying your crew and the visitor and the home coach and whoever the contacts are, that kind of thing. And then with that chain of those emails, everybody's getting the information in real time. And so I found that to be very helpful. And those other questions, is there special parking place or anything like that, so that everybody can see it. And then whatever changes need to be made or things that have to happen in arbiter change, everybody will know what's going on. And I found that to be very helpful in the communication stage and the email early on.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I do like to just kind of forward that email and then make sure you've got the one thing I've noticed that you'll, unfortunately, sometimes email isn't correct or something. You got to just go double check. Pat's pretty on it though, so it's not as much like that in Arbiter as much as it is in ZebraWeb. But yeah, just make sure that you've got all the details there and you're clearly communicating. Because again, this doesn't have to be a dissertation about what the game's going to be or anything else. You're just nailing down the key facts of here's where we're going to be at this time, and don't tell them we're going to call the game tight or any of that BS. Like you're just literally giving them what the facts are going to be. We're going to be at your stadium for a 7:00 game. We'll be there. We plan to arrive at 6:15 and be on the field at 6:25 or 6:35, ready to go. And then the other part about this too this year is we got to make sure that you're asking the coaches, especially as you go into different school districts and things like that. Everybody's going to have their own set of COVID rules, and there's no other way around that other than ask them what their game day COVID protocol is. Chris, I see you raising your hand. What do you got, Peters?
So here's my question. For football, we were required to ask the coaches per the GSH rules if regarding COVID. Are we following the same rules for the spring as it did for the fall?
Herbert, you know better than I do here on
well actually
on the ball.
But I think we have a GSA protocol of what we're going to talk about. I think Greg may have mentioned that in the first meeting. If not, we'll tie that in and get that on the website so you know actually put that in your toolbox, what you need to do.
Right, because Georgia High School did for the fall, they had the standard verbiage about the COVID question with regards to the question asking the coaches whether or not if anyone on their facility or their team tested positive for COVID.
I imagine we probably do the same thing. It won't be tweak from what the football was, because that was kind of the first one. The first one that went out because all those sports got canceled in the spring and the summer.
Right. So I just remember that's our requirement for the fall. So I assume it was going to be the same for the spring. Yeah,
that's a good point, Chris. We'll double check. I'm pretty sure it will be. We'll double check. I'm writing a note on that to make sure we double check that.
Thanks.
This is Patrick. Let me jump in quick. So we'll double check on that, Chris. The Arbor reminder is going to come out 72 hours before your game. So we updated it from 5 days. So basically, once you accept the game, an Arbor reminder is going to send it 72 hours in advance. On there, you're going to see coaches. All the coaches have been updated. We got 90% of the cell phones in there, just in case. And sometimes there are ADs and community coaches. So you can always go back to the contact list and ask, look at there, or if you got any questions, just let one of these signers know.
Thanks, Pat. Anybody else got any questions before we move on?
I can tell you that for basketball, there was no requirement of us asking the coach if anybody was tested for COVID. The only thing they really stressed was that we wore masks for our pregame meeting when talking with the coaches and the players. Yeah. There was only one captain and the coach, and that was it.
Yeah, we'll see where all that goes, but I agree. I think it is, here's the thing is you guys need to take as many precautions as you can, in my opinion, on all of this stuff. So, overdo everything. Over communicate, use your mask when you need to, those types of things to really show. Look, I think I've talked about this in the past where there are ways to gain coaches. You get points. It's like a bank, and everybody starts off in negative in the bank of the coaches. So before you even got them liking you, you got to get back into the positive, right? So like there's just these little things that help you along the way. And doing those types of things like wearing the mask and, over communicating this as far as, all the details that you can beforehand, I think really make the difference between an R and a good R, right? And we need a lot more guys that step up into that good R category. So, anything else that anyone has as far as that questions before we move on?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Just saying in football, we had the question to ask, And in one game, the two teams were ready, and the coach actually said yes, that he had a player test positive, and they had to cancel the game, but it was a shock. They had to call the GHSA to really see what to do. So I would say, Patrick, in that sense, if something were to occur in that where a coach said yes, they have a positive or something like that, how you probably want to ask the GHSA how should that be handled at that point? That's all.
Hey, Trey and Herb, would you want us to go ahead and put a game report in for that situation if a coach or player comes in and says, yeah, hey, I just got my test results back, I tested positive? That way everybody's covered.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to get into kind of the post-game and in-game management. But, yeah, that's definitely something. Look, at the end of the day, we want you guys to fill out a game report. As far as the game reports are concerned, fill out a game report if you have a question. If there's something that's weird, fill it out, and then we'll decide whether it goes up to the state level or not, right, Pat? Like, there's an option there where we kind of filter it before it goes there, right?
Correct. Anything that's abnormal, you fill out the instant report on our website, the GA Lax Rev. It's called an instant report. You fill it out. It goes to the assigners. It goes to assigners and a few board members. We'll review it, and then we determine if it goes to the GHC or not. So again, any abnormality, CYA, just fill it out.
I have another question. So in football, it's my last question for the day, I promise. Football, the coaches were required to wear masks. Are the coaches required to do that in lacrosse, or is that just optional?
You guys are hitting on some of these COVID questions that I haven't really
we were not, for example, we as officials were not required to wear anything. If we chose to, you chose to. If you're not, that we're independent contractors. We do what we choose, but we were not required to for our football association.
So based on the fall, Chris, everyone wore a mask. I don't know what the protocols are. Yes.
Yeah, the coaches did. Yeah.
Right. So the box, how we're doing the face-off, some of these COVID procedures, we're going to cover all that next week.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So
we'll
no, that's no problem. You don't know, but I'm pretty sure the masks are included. But we'll confirm all these details, and we'll, again, as I said, we'll send out an email updates before the end of the month.
Okay. Hey, Patrick, in basketball, we don't have to wear masks, but we do have to have these little covers that go over the whistle.
Yeah, get ready. That seems like that's the new thing.
Yeah, this is
like a condom.
For the board, everyone, it's all.
This stuff changes daily. We're trying to stay on top of it, but I guess to keep this thing on track and kind of moving it forward. But just remember, guys, the key change this year for everyone to remember is if you're the R, it's your responsibility to make sure all the ducks are in a row. All right, get people there. It may be a good idea to text those guys in the morning to say, hey, have you been symptomatic? Are you good? Still good to go? Even though you touch base, 48 to 72 hours before that, saying, hey, we got the assignment, here's where we're going to be, all those details. Send those guys a text or whatever it is to just make sure things haven't changed, because this world changes in a blink of an eye, right, guys? All right, so next we're going to go to kind of what do we include in our pregame, tailoring your pregame, and really we kind of talked about 4 points here. The crew, tailoring it to your crew, tailoring it to the competition, tailoring it to the time you have, and then adapting your pregame to as it goes. So, Herbert, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about tailoring your pregame to the crew.
Yeah. Once you get your assignment, and like I said, so we generally should know a good bit of the people who are in the association. If you don't know them, then your antenna should go up. Once you figure out what your crew is, it doesn't hurt. Send a quick text to the sign if you don't know the gentleman, and Pat would be glad to say, Pat, why is Johnny on this game right here? And Pat will come back and say, well, we're trying to move him up, or trying to give him some opportunities. Get all that information you can real quick, and then use that in your pregame to make the crew the best they can that day, and talk to those scenarios. I mean, if you have, and I like to do examples. If Trey sees Pat Joyce and A. Nick is going to be on this ball game, I'm pretty sure he's not going to talk about, hey guys, the ball is round and the goal is this and all that. They're probably going to get together and say, hey, we got Lovett versus Westminster. We know what we got here. We know the coaches. Here's some insights I found out the other day about Lovett. Here's some insights I found about Westminster. And then get themselves ready to do a ball game. So, tailor that thing to your crew. Now, if you got Johnny Newman on the crew, and you have another veteran, well, I would probably talk to that new official more and then send Pat. Say, Pat already talked to Johnny New Guy, and he's really excited about doing his first 3-man ball game. So I really wanted him to kind of just maybe highlight on what it is to be a single, because when you're the single, you're the quarterback. Look at the pregame sheet on what singles do, because that's one of the things. And then after that, once we get there, we're reinforced on that, and then start our pregame and make sure Johnny is very comfortable to do this 3-man ball game. And it's unfortunately, if you get you're going to get those games where the guy just got his brand new shirt, and remember, you've been there before too. I was too. You remember how it was. So definitely contact him or her as early as you can to get him or her comfortable to get on the field and experience something they have possibly never experienced before. And then you're going to be ready to go over that pregame and know what you're going to have to do during that game with that official. So really look at your crew. What we really we're emphasizing this year, just because you see, I got X, Y, I'm just going to show up, give them a quick email, and I'll be there in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and we just go through the motions and go out there. Let's try to make these other officials the best like we are. Like I said, there's a difference between it being an R and a good R. Take a little time out there and figure out how you can maximize to manage your team.
Yeah, you get a guy like Fleury who throws coaches out, send them over to the single side the rest of the whole game, right?
That's right.
Just knowing who you're working with. And next, we want to talk about the competition. Know what's at stake. As know the venue. Know, if you got a Lovett Westminster game, all the people that are going to be on that game better know, hey, especially excluding social distancing policies and everything else, there's going to be a lot of kids there, and they're going to be loud, and they're going to be banging, and like you're going to have to make a call in the heat of it, and people aren't going to like it. And how are you going to communicate that? You got to really use your signals, and just, I guess, at the end of the day, know what's at stake. And one of the things that I touched on with Herbert when we were talking about this presentation was I kind of referenced back to one of my first Blaze games, and Brian Abbott came into this game, and he was the crew chief on the game, and he knew who played where in college on that roster versus the other rosters. So, for example, it may have been Will Manning down in attack, played against, somebody at long pole, Virginia Duke or Syracuse Hopkins, a heated rivalry. He knew that going into that, and that was in our pregame. So I'm not saying that we're going to be able to get down into that level at this high school, but do as much as you can to understand what that situation is and how much you can prepare for that situation, and knowing what's at stake, right? Like, there are these two teams battling out for a playoff spot. Maybe we know that, Liam Banks is coaching at one school and Brian Wallace is coaching at the other school, and they both worked with each other. So they have a kind of a friendly relationship, but at the same time, we can't let that play out with them talking trash to each other and everything else, right? So the other example would be, Ratcliffe and whatchamacallit at Holy Innocents that coached him at Walton, right? So some of those things, if you can get that background, Pat, any of us that have been around the game for long enough may be able to help you with that. So if you have one of those types of games, reach out to your fellow officials. I will say during lacrosse season, it's funny. Like I probably go through my phone and call people weekly, multiple people daily per week, right? So like within my kind of circle of friends, and I'll hit Dale up, I'll hit Ryan Rowe up or Joyce up or whoever it is, just to think, hey, how would they have handled this situation? And those are the types of things that you can do also to figure out, hey, who is playing here and what's at stake, right? What's the full picture here before we walk into this chit show?
Yeah. And one of the tips I've done, I mean, if you can't get that information, now COVID may be a little bit different because I probably want to talk to the coaches too much during the pregame. One of the questions I asked the coaches, and I'm asking them to give me an honest answer. It could be not telling the truth. I said, how's the team doing this year? And they'll tell me, how's your record? I said, we're doing pretty good. We're making a run. We're still trying to get better. Now, I take that data for what it's worth. And I asked the other team as well. You may get something out of that that may help you out that you didn't know about. And all it takes is a little bit.
Yep. And that goes back to one more thing I've really learned to do is go before you go out to a game, look up to see who the head coaches are. And when you walk out there and you introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm Trey Towery, nice to meet you, Mike. Who before he even has to say his name, you've already know his name. That's one more. That's a point in the bank already. Hey, you came to this game prepared because you knew who I was, and especially you got a new coach. Every one of these teams has a home website. Go out there. It takes 5 seconds to see who the head coach is of each of these teams. I usually do it when I'm filling out my game cards and write it. I will literally write it on my back of my scorecard of Coach Harris versus Coach Jake, whoever it is, right? So those are the little things. Remember though, it's high school, right? We don't have a lot of time, especially sometimes you may have guys that are on JV games, right, beforehand. So just keep all of that in mind. And also we talk through this and we say, hey, contact your guys 48 hours beforehand at least. We all know that what happens with the game, and especially during COVID and everything else, is Pat's going to pull somebody and put somebody else on there, and we're all going to blame Pat, right? So just, as you
blame me anyway.
Understand the circle. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Pat. Just understand that it's high school and you may not be able to get everything across, but try to hit home the key points that you think are going to come up during that game. And then the last note, and Herbert, you can kind of talk on this too, but I definitely say that every year I start my pregame I'll start a pregame sheet with kind of, I like to do my pregames based on here's what we're going to do from the coin toss all the way through the final whistle. And that includes overtime, right? All the different scenarios that we can do. Now, refer back to the last piece. It's high school, so I'm not going to be able to go through a complete game from start to finish before a high school game, right? But regardless, my pregame sheet kind of has that walkthrough of here's what we're going to do from coin toss once we get out on the field, all the way through that overtime and how we're going to handle walking off the field and getting out of there. So, but as the season progresses, things change, right? We start to see, they're really, I don't know, they're really heavy in the crease this year, right? There's a lot of off-ball picks that are happening. I'm really going to make sure that I focus on that most of my pre-games. And some of the stuff I kind of take away and, basically add and subtract what from your pregame notes as you see the season progresses and as these things come up. Herbert, you got anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, you know, your adaptation is going to be basically on the other 3 points that we got up top, you know, as well. You got to adapt based on your crew, your competition, and the time that you have. You get that, you know, good team versus good team. You're gonna adapt to that. You get the good team versus the bad team. Gonna be a blowout possibly. You can say, I want to adapt my pregame to reference some other things to do to maximize the game and benefit my progression, because you can get something out of a blowout game. Don't have that theory. Let's get these 10 goals so we get on out of here. Well, they're gonna take care of that for you. I mean, you know, that's their responsibility, not mine. But make sure that we adapt to those things we have: crew, competition, time, and based on how we're going throughout the season. And be prepared to adjust, because you may get in there and find out, you know, you got a good team versus bad team, and Pat all of a sudden send you to, you know, one of the top games of the week that same time. So I got myself prepared to do a, quote, easy pregame. Now it turns into a real pregame, you know. So just be ready to adapt. Any comments from the audience?
Anything you guys want to talk about before, like what you guys like to include in your pre-games, some things that you've seen in pre-games that you really in particular like? Anything that you guys want to discuss about kind of the pre-game in general? Feel free to chime in or add some context.
Trey, this is Dale. One thing you want to do is, when you know the crew you're on and when you're reading them before the game, get their temperature also of what is it. One of them might be, like was mentioned earlier, that might be one of their first big games. So they might be deer in a headlight. So you need to make sure you get their temperature and bring them down and get them involved by either, however you may do it, cracking a little joke to make them feel more comfortable, or get them involved in the pregame by asking them questions and situations. So you want to make sure that not only you're ready, but the rest of the crew is more confident in their abilities and skills once they get out there, so they're not freaking out.
That's great. Thanks, Dale. Yeah, definitely. That reminds me kind of one of the things that you'll see a lot of the guys at the elite level of college officiating. They'll separate the pregame and ask you, or not ask you, tell you in the initial email, Dale, you have offsides and dives, and Trey, you've got timers, and some other point face-offs. So that's another way that you guys can get your crew involved, is assign them a specific area for them to deliver your part of that, or that part of your pregame, so that, I think it goes back to the adage of if you can teach it, you know it, right? Mm-hmm. So let them try to tell you how to do it, and then correct them as they try to teach you what that's going to be as part of the pregame. Dale, you look like
it's important. Yeah, it's important that, when you involve them like that, it's not a test and you're trying to get them more freaked out. It's to get them more involved. You want them to feel, the old school R was, listen, crew, it's my way or the highway. Listen to everything I say. I like more of we're a team together. We all need to work together. We all need to, help each other out. So if you see something, let's talk about it, instead of just listen to me and I'll take care of everything. At the level we're at with the varsity games and being the R, we're trying to train our replacements and get them comfortable to be running out there and doing these games. So train them as well as be their boss, I guess. So involve them as best you can.
I'll make a comment, something that has worked for me, something that I found actually some other guys doing with me long ago, was walking the field for a number of reasons. I like to start at one end line and, literally walk the field. But as you start on the end line, you can start talking about, the crease. You start talking about clearing, start talking about, responsibilities, moving up the field, start talking about, if we're moving this way, and, it just makes it easier to kind of talk through situations. Trail, here where we got our eyes on the crease and all those types of things. It also gets you away from the benches and coaches and enables you to talk, a little bit more freely. But again, I'd like walking the field and talking about things at the same time.
Yeah, I'm guessing that wasn't Louis and his bike shorts that showed you that.
A bunch of guys. Actually, I walked the field one time with Bill Powell and Mike Culver. I'll never forget it, among others. But so it's something I've adapted.
You kept up with him on the walk too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Wrong, DeMarchi.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jason. I mean, especially when you're working with the young officials, which one of the things I want to try to do this year, to get the young official in the first game with you, and you do some things, and you maybe give him some good points, what he did well and what he needs to work on. And next time you do next game with him, say, hey, you want to try to work on that stuff we talked about, or ask him, what do you want to work on in this ball game today? Get him to buy in on something that we really want to focus on in that game. It gives him a level of comfort that, he's not worried about trying to cover it all.
And a good thing too, on top of that, is even though I'm probably one on the younger side of things from the group, is after like a quarter, just get together. Hey, did you see anything big you want to talk about? Hey, I saw this player. There's some crease movement. Did you check the feet? Did you check the push in the back? That kind of aspect. And from those that have played too, there's some other opportunities and insights that we can provide the officials that haven't been in that perspective yet.
Yeah, piggybacking on what Ryan said, the other thing too is, we can ask our crew, what is it that we're doing well and what is it that we could do better? Mm-hmm. And so I think that helps also.
That's a perfect segue, guys. Thank you for into our next kind of topic. And so the thing I wrote here is, remember, the pregame doesn't stop with the anthem, right? We've gone through it. Sure, we said what we were going to do, but things changed. Different circumstances happen. All of a sudden we got number one for a slash in minute 2. Then and our first time out, or at the end of the first quarter, we got the same guy for a stick violation. Now he's got 4 minutes. What are we going to do? And not to say that we're going to call the game differently, but we need to make sure that his next personal foul is a flagrant foul enough to foul him out, mm-hmm. right? And to truly take that player out of this game. And I'm not saying that you're going to look away from fouls that he may be creating, but you need to make sure that, okay, maybe the first one was a brush and we had a slash, and then his stick came over and it was barely illegal, but the ball was holding it in, and it's a wet day, but we got to take it because it's just it's a bag, right? So now we're looking at that, whatever the circumstance is. Now we've got 4 minutes on a player. How are we gonna call this? And let's make sure that we know that number one is hot in there in the crease, and if he comes in there, with a brush, that we're not going to send him home on that brush call. And I think the other point here is, Herbert, you want to talk about kind of using our breaks and everything else here?
Yeah, that's a good point. And that stuff Trey talked about, those are opportunities, the timeouts. We have a timeout. Once we get everything adjudicated, we usually have a little rest time. We can breathe, come over and have a talk about, hey, all kinds of things on the slash situation. Number one, man, I think we got about 3 minutes already. You sure? And we can go verify that so we know in our mind. Like I said, it doesn't change what we're gonna do, but it's just situational awareness. The quarters at the half. during stick checks, once we get all that taken care of. Just quick conversations that we can have. And what we want to try to do is, as our little U and little FJ will look at you, but at the end, but Clyde made a good comment. Once the game starts, the R is only there to take care of some things that can happen administratively. We're all officials, so you as R's be ready to get buy-in and accept what you're getting from your U and possibly your FJ. They maybe give you some great information that you can use that you're not thinking about, because being an R in lacrosse and I had the pleasure of being an R in football, I look for a lot of information from the other officials. I got things going in my mind, and those little things that they may tell me may click and help me present things back to the crew in a positive manner.
Yeah, I think most of you guys that have wrestled with me before will say that, you know, if we come to a timeout and I'm not sure what you had, I'm going to ask you what you had. You know, what did you see? What happened there? And it's not because I'm putting you on the spot. It's at the end of the day, what we're trying to do as the R is to make sure that the three of us are a team that are calling the same game, consistent on both sides, right? So what I'm asking you is, maybe I didn't see it. We all know that lacrosse is a huge field, and it's quick and it's up and down and it goes both ways, right? So the ball changes hands real quick. And if it's on a clear, if I'm old trail, new lead, I got to start busting it down the field, and I might not see the slash that Herbert got or somebody else. So I may get in that next time out and ask, hey, Herbert, what'd you have? Maybe it was a slash on the attackman that came through and hit the kid on the back. Okay, I'm fine with that. It's a slash. But now I got to make sure that if I'm going back the other way as the trail, that I've got that same thing on the attack riding that ball, right? So all we're trying to do is not point fingers at who did what and why. It's more, hey, what did you see, so that I make sure that I called this the same way on this side of the field that you did on that side of the field.
Hey, Trey,
and the last, yeah, go ahead, please.
So that being said, you also have people that are offensive-minded officials, and so also have people that are defensive-minded officials. So therefore, what I might consider is acceptable play may not be acceptable to somebody else. So if you have a different mindset, that's part of one of those things you also need maybe talk about before the game starts. You know, like I may be a defensive-minded guy, and I don't care if they get a little physical with them in the defensive end. And if you're an offensive guy, you might find that that's too physical. So we kind of have to work where we're all on the sort of the same page, so we're consistent with what we're doing.
Yeah, it's a perfect point, Chris. Thanks. I think that you hit the nail on the head there. And I think that goes back to kind of, I'll probably say this to every official, and every official that I ref with tells me the same thing, is the first flag, right, is the one that the way we're going to call it, right? It kind of sets a tone. And so whether I'm a defensive official or an offensive official or whatever you could define me as, and I'm not going to put people in categories, but whatever you could define it as, we're all coming together as a team and calling the same game. So if somebody comes out and sets a tone and makes three quick, ticky-tack calls, we got to figure out a way to get out of the ticky-tack situation, and it's not going to be easy, right? But we're going to come together at that timeout and talk about what do we do, how do we get here, and how can we get away from here so that there's a nice flow to the game, right? We want a nice flow for the players, and there's nothing better than getting into that situation and then getting out of it and walking off the field. The coach is being like, man, started out rough, but you guys handled it the way I thought, better than I thought it could have been, right? So you get those compliments from the coaches and the players after you've been in that situation, but that comes back to, what are we doing in our breaks to understand where we are in that game and how can we improve upon where we're at.
And Trey, it's also to
go ahead.
to get pertinent information from coaches and possible assistant coaches throughout that. Now, that being said, you know, a year or two ago, we had a presentation on how to deal with those coaches. And remember what he has on that: listen, but don't bend to what they're saying. And another example is their transmit signal, and you're going to receive, but in that engineering world, you got to put a filter in between that so you can make sure you get a good transmission of data. So filter what's coming through, be open to it, and then come back and relay that to your crew. You know, hey, coach has some concerns on that, and you know, he stated his case properly. And you know, and it could be, I think let's take a look and see what's going on. You know, but if he comes in with a lot of noise, and you know, you got to put your filter in that, and make sure that you don't bend to what they're trying to get out of the ball game.
Yeah, for sure. I think you know, a lot of coaches around here have, especially since you go back to 15 years ago, where there was a lot of guys that didn't know what they're talking about. It's kind of the reverse now. A lot of these coaches know a lot of what they're talking about, so they probably have a decent point. I'm not saying you got to call it like they want, but you know, like Herbert was saying, listen to them, but don't bend. And Herbert's the coach whisperer, so you guys cling on to every word he says about how to talk to a coach. All right. And so, anybody else got anything about?
Year, probably. I probably throw everybody out.
What's that?
I probably throw everybody out again this year.
Anybody else got anything about kind of your in-game management tips? Anything that you guys have picked up along the way you want to share before we kind of move on about kind of our post-game responsibilities?
Trey, what do you what's your typical response to a coach about a call that another one of your crew members made that you may not have seen or you may not even agreed with?
You know, number one is we're definitely not throwing them under the bus, right? We're a team. Kind of go back to that whole team aspect. Yeah, the first thing I'll tell a coach when they ask me and I don't know, or maybe, and I always go back to this. Look, we all are out here and we're professionals, and we saw something and we called it, right? So if I may not have seen it. I may have been at the wrong position. You had a better angle, whatever it is. I'm not going to like throw you under the bus and say you like that was definitely not a slash. Why the hell did you call that, right? But at the same time, we're going to get together and talk about that. And I'll tell the coach the same thing. Coach, I had a different angle on it. Let me get with him. I'll get back to you, or I'll get him over there to you. If I got a good crew and I got 3 people that I'm confident in, the next time out or dead ball, quarter, or whatever else, I'm going to make sure that I get that official over there to tell him in person. We don't have to be as ours. I think there's sometimes where people make this mistake of it's me and only me, and that's kind of that old school mentality of it's me and only me, and I can only talk to the referee. You tell me what you saw, and I'll go tell him what you saw. I'm not. That's a he said she said game, and it's a game of telephone, and we all learn how that game goes when we're kids, right? The translation gets lost. So, in my opinion, put your fellow official that you trust over in front of that coach and let him explain what happened. Now, if he's a newer guy and not comfortable with that, that's a different story, and that's something you may have covered in your pregame of how are we going to handle this situation when it comes up.
Hey, Trey.
Trey, quick comment. This is James. One of the things that I like to do is with officials is, one, let them know that they don't have to be afraid to respond to a coach. You know, coaches hate when they're ignored. But if you're going to respond to a coach's question, use the language of the rule book. You know, don't just come out with answering any kind of way that you think that feels good to you. But if you use the language of the rule book, that'll keep you out of hot water.
Yeah, I think that you're right. We can definitely use the rule book to our, that's one of the tools. I think there are a number of tools that I think Herbert and I kind of talked about on that previous, how to talk to coaches discussion. That's one of them. Another one is, admitting that you didn't see the play. There's nothing wrong with saying, Coach, my eyes were upfield. That wasn't where I was looking. I'll find out what Bill had, or something like that. We can go down that list of tools and comments that we can say to get away from it. The best part about lacrosse is we're not calling balls and strikes, fellas. We can literally run away, right, and let him diffuse himself, or let that situation kind of start to calm down. Herbert, you got anything on that?
No, the piggyback on that. I mean, just get in that situation and take that data that he's giving. And you got to remember this game, as I learned, and some of the veterans taught me, it's a high-strung game. If you have a chance to sit back and watch it and not be on the field, they're very animated, the coach, the players. It's good testosterone game, but you go in there with the calmness to let him. He's going to yell at you. Did you see that play? Every now and then you get one come to you and I say, did you see that play? They're going to yell real loud. Did you see that play? And you got to get him calmed down so you can get the data. And here's the deal with the rules, and I agree with James on that. You can come back with rules. Two things. When you come back with the rule, make sure you know what you're coming back with. That's one. And two, make sure your tone of how you come back is in a good, calming way, not I told you so, I know more than you. If you do that, it's mad. They can still stay mad, but they can't compound that you added more gasoline to what they were trying, the fire that they had. We lost our audience.
I think that. What's that?
Did we lose our audience in the comments, guys?
I gotta say, with that in mind, how about a little advice or guidance for all of us on, and I know we all have our own way. Frankly, with a coach, enough's enough.
Yeah.
I don't stick your shit all day long.
Look, here, I'll be frank with you. Like, I used to have a longer fuse than I do now. Look, we got tools in our bag, right? Take the ball away is number one. And we talk about this in the pregame, in our pregames. You take the ball away. You look for him when they're at an event. If he says something, first you warn him, then you take the ball away, then you throw a flag and give him a conduct, and then you give him an unsportsmanlike. If you do all four of those things and he's still acting up, throw his ass out and write a game report. I think here's one thing that I see. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, it was Rich.
I was going to say, I mean, typically if you go through the 4 steps there, they can see the writing on the wall. And that's the whole point.
I think all your points are great. And, hopefully maybe that's part of the pregame, subtly letting the coach know, hey, we're all professional. We're doing our best to be professionals together out here in the field. So maybe set that tone a little bit as well. So you expect me, without having to say it, you expect me to be professional. Well, the same goes for you, sort of thing.
And one of the other things in dealing with the coaches is, Nick, remember, we're not responding to statements. So ask the coach, do you have a question there? Or, something like that, so that you can have a dialogue that's meaningful, but not something that is going to distract you from the game, or, spend too much time with him and the other coach sees, well, you're always over there having all these conversations, but I don't see the same happening over here. Because remember, the other coach is watching what interaction we're having with them. And if we're buddy chumming, having a lot of laughing and talking, as opposed to reffing the game and answering questions and keeping it moving, that's not going to serve us well as a crew. So remember, it's always coach, is there a question? We'll get you an answer, get them that answer, that kind of thing, and keep it moving. And then the other thing is, as we're ratcheting it up, let the coach know. Sometimes, coach, we're getting close to, maybe taking the ball away or something. There are different ways, and the coach whisperer has lots of phrases that we can use, and he's a good guy to, talk to and ask about those kinds of things. So hopefully that helps also in dealing with the coaches.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nick. And the segue on the topic we got here during your pregame, if you have an official that you see or especially a young one, he's getting some heat, hey, switch sides. Move him over on the other side. Get him out of there. And if you have somebody, we got to look out for each other. I'm the whisperer, but I get ticked off too. But but if you see another official getting a lot of heat, and he said, Herbert, this guy, I'm about tired of him. I said, hey, come on the other side. Let me go handle it for a little bit. And when I get on, the first thing I'm gonna do, he's gonna talk to me about how bad that other official is, and I'm gonna ignore him. And then I'll make a calm comment, coach, we're working hard out here just like you coaching hard. And at one point, I'm not going to let him get to the point where he just berates the other official. And I'm not going to, I start with one. I say, coach, that's enough. And then you take those opportunities. And if you ramp those things up properly, they will eventually calm down. I mean, and if not, my theory, you treat the players like your kids, you treat the assistant coaches like your brother, and you treat the head coach like dad. And every now and then, dad gets crazy. You got to put him in the house sometimes. I mean, that's how it works. And do it with the officiating tone that we have. Not, I got you out of there. Simple. He disqualified himself. You didn't eject him. He disqualified himself. Herbert,
would you talk about how to deal with assistant coaches?
I deal with assistant coaches like my brother. I mean, we get along. But when he crossed the line and tried to be my daddy, we got a problem. Then I go to the head coach and say, Coach, I'm only going to listen to you right now. And he knows what that means. And he normally says, assistant coaches, calm down. Can you take care of your bench? I'm only going to listen to you. Got a lot of stuff going over here. I'm going to listen to you. And he'll say, understand. If the assistant coaches keep going, then I'm going to tell dad, guess what I'm going to do? Do to my brother. Bam, conduct. What happened? Your assistant coach is getting out of hand. Brother's getting out of hand, dad. Can't take it. And can you calm him down? And they will probably, in one of those good ball games, he tell them, I don't know how he does it. They tell him, hey, good try. That's enough. Calm down. You try to do what I want you to do. I don't know what they do over there, but they need to calm down,
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point as far as, your in-game management and everything else. Guys, and what's enough is enough. I think as we are, I'm not going to tolerate if I'm bench side and, my partner's running far side and the coach is yelling, what the hell did he have? All that, like, guys, you guys have to make that judgment. But in general, these coaches should be asking you a lacrosse question. It shouldn't be, and when they get to that point, the best thing that all the best do, including the coach whisperer, is they get close to them. If you get close to a coach when they're yelling at you, they look dumb, right? They're on fire, they're yelling, and you're like 2 feet away, and you're like, coach, and you talk to them in that calm, coach whisperer voice, coach, I got you. I hear what you're saying. Like, we got it, like, we're going to get there, but we're going to, we're on two different spots right now, but we'll get together here in a minute. But don't let them come at you, and don't let them come at your partner from 75 yards away. But that doesn't mean that we're going to change the way we called the game in the fourth quarter than we did in the first quarter, right? So if he comes out, like, you got to put a stop to this thing when it starts. Don't, just because it gets tight in the fourth quarter and everything gets heated up, guys, it goes back to this, the whole idea of, remember how many hours these kids and coaches have spent per game leading up to a game, right, of preparation. So per game of preparation, they may spend, 100 hours. I know that sounds crazy, but when you add up the summer ball and everything else to get to their varsity senior game, they practice 100 hours between their junior year and their senior year. There's a lot leading up to that. They've got fall ball, they've got spring ball or preseason as far as the conditioning and everything, and then they get into these practices, and then you make this one call in the heat of the moment that changed everything. Of course you're going to be mad. I'd be mad, right? Like, we all get mad, right, Dale? So, just remember how much they've put into this thing before they get there, and defusing them the best way that they can during the game by giving them that warning and using your tools to de-escalate the situation. Anybody else have anything about in-game?
I might as well say something. I think we'd all be remiss if we didn't talk about the pregame discussion with the coach, and particularly in regards to the assistants, to say that the old line, we're looking for one voice off the bench, right? From our good friend Louis. For you and so forth. I say that a lot to the head coaches, and I say, I've heard a lot of great things about you, and I heard you really know a lot about the game, so I want to make sure, I hear everything you got. And they always smile and laugh. So we're looking for one voice off the sideline.
There's been a lot of discussion about the coaches, but a lot of things can go on during the field. That's very important that we stay on top of also. Getting the temperature of the players, getting the temperature of the way they interact with each other, and just discussions with the players amongst the game and between whistles. You can diffuse a lot of the tempers by doing the game management during the game itself. And it'll keep the coaches, their temperature down too. Just keep the players cool, and the temperature of the coaches typically will do that also.
That's an excellent point, Dale. And I've only been doing this, I'm coming in now, I think on my 6th year, and then I coached and stuff years before that. I think as I've moved up through the game, and it's only high school, but there's a lot of players who are exercising their voice as adults while they're still young men. And how far are people willing to let them go? I actually last year regrettably saw kid go up and chest bump a referee. And, the R was kind enough to let that go. But, it's getting tough out there.
Yeah, that's a shame that we had somebody chest bump. I will say this, guys, and this goes something I wanted to bring up too is, I've got friends that are coaches, and we go up and you do the game, and I'll recall back to when I was doing Auburn games early in my college days, and I would go back there, and I literally knew people that were still on the team, and at the end of the day, we're out there to do a job, and you got to be professional, and you can't show favoritism. You can't go over and be buddy with anybody. You can't do any of that, because the perspective that you're leaving between the two sides is that you're playing favorites to one or the other. Doesn't matter how long you've known them. Dale, I know you went through the situation with one of your buddies back from Michigan State and came down and played. He was a coach for one of these varsity teams. It was one of his first jobs, and I know we just can't do all of that, right? Like, we can't go up and pretend like we or even know. And a lot of the great officials will tell you should spend equal time with coaches, right? That means if I spend 2 minutes in my pregame with this guy, I'm spending 2 minutes with that guy. Yeah, go ahead.
I probably should have qualified that. I didn't mean chest bump in a friendly fashion. I meant in an aggressive fashion.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
Which totally changes the equation from where you were thinking there. It's just
yeah.
We don't have the tools in our belt to, so to speak, to, just where's the line we're gonna. This is such a tough question. I just don't. I think it's one of those things you kind of know when you see it, but the kids are just at some point you got to say, kids are going to swear in the field. They're going to say some dumb stuff because they're just kids. But at some point, we got to hold the line. I certainly hold the line. There's certain things I don't allow people to address me in my personal life and professional life. I'm certainly not going to let that go on the field. That's one of the ways I do it. But I don't know how everybody else is handling it.
Well, let's remember that this is high school, and high school is about helping them become, the best citizens that they can once they leave high school and go out into the world. You get to college, and that's a different deal. It's about the coaches. You get to the pros, it's all about the players. So you have to remember where you are and what is the focus of the game. And in high school, it's, helping them be the best that they can. And they need to learn how to control those emotions. And, we talk to them on the field, you hear them swearing, hey, let's not have any swearing out here, let's keep it clean or things like that. And, that communication that we're going to have with the players, is going to go a long way to helping them be the best citizens they can once they no longer play sports and get all the positive things they should get out of sports.
Right.
That's why we're there to make sure that happens. So let's be mindful of where we are. And you're exactly right. They're kids and you're the adult, and you're there to bring calmness to the game and to give everybody an opportunity to win. But there are certain lines that they cannot cross, and that's why you're there. That's why you get paid the big bucks. That's why you have the stripes on. So, we have to have the intestinal fortitude to do what we're supposed to do wherever we are and understand, what's important at whatever level it is.
I appreciate that feedback because I just don't want to be that guy. Hey, boomer, shut up over there. We're going to talk the way we talk. So.
I think it goes back to I think a lot of guys, especially those that have played, will always say, respect the game. It's the creator's game, and anything you're doing against that is subject to. We need to make sure that that that's what this is. So, Dale, you got something to add to that?
Yeah, it's real important in this language thing that we're treading on and talking about. You're not listening for that stuff. You're not looking to hear somebody drop an F-bomb. If somebody takes a wide open shot on a cage and misses the cage by 5 yards and he drops an F-bomb under his voice to himself, I'm not going to hear that. But if he's screaming at another player or making it audible, that's where you have to draw the line. Sometimes you can use some, your verbal judo, as some people say, and say, hey guys, let's just be classy, just between you and him, so they hear it. Or say, my virgin ears are on fire, guys. It'll get the point across to them. So it's the context of what they're saying it, where they're saying it, but don't go looking for that stuff because you're just going to get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Hey, this is Ryan over here. One thing too is if you get into a situation or you have a younger official or you're that Walton versus Milton or Alpharetta versus Milton, same kind of aspect scenario, and you have those moments, take a few seconds to take your partners in, have a conversation with the coaches. Hey, we're be mindful. White talks to white, black talks to black, or whatever the colors may be at the time. If it starts to get out of control, we'll talk to the players. Hey, you're just guys, remember, you need to talk to white, blue, you need to talk to blue. And if it starts to get out of it, address with the coaches. Hey guys, you need to talk with your players and make sure that they understand that we've already given them a warning and use the tools that we have. But then also in that same time, talk with the other officials that you have. Hey, this is what I'm hearing. This is number 7 on attack and number 18 on defense are chipping at each other. Be mindful of those situations, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think, to kind of push this topic to the next point here, in the end, gentlemen, you guys are all referees and, we trust your judgment. We want you guys to, over communicate with your crew ahead of time, with the coaches ahead of time, and be just be respectful and listen and be leaders to the rest of the organization. You guys are the crew chiefs for a reason. Y'all represent the association at the highest point on the field, and we are putting you guys out there. Pat and the assigners are putting y'all out there because they believe in what you can do. So just go out there and, take charge and be as the best leader that you know how you can be. And don't make the game. I think that the other thing here is we've talked about coaches and everything, and I don't want to leave this before saying this. Don't make the game bigger than you. Don't come in there and start, you got to do this. You got to don't be that R. Be the R that's like a ninja. Go in there and you're like the ninja sensei, because you go in there, you're in charge of everything. Nobody knows it, but you just literally go in there, you make your calls, and you walk up the field, and nobody even really knows you were there, but you handled it from start to finish the way you should have done it. So that's the end game. We got a quick comment about the post game here. I'm going to leave you with this, and then I'll let Herbert wrap us up. But before I leave you with the post game, guys, there's these pregame 2-man and things. We're going to put these out there on the web. This is something that Greg had pulled together. It's kind of basically some of the key points you may want to talk about. Again, high school, you're not going to be able to go through every single one of these points, and this should adapt as you go through the season. So these will be out there on the website. We'll put those out there. I'm going to leave you with this and let Herbert go. The big whistle, his tip that I still use to this day, it's not, hey, your thumb wasn't down. It's actually, as the R, go in and literally take a few notes on the game that you were just on. I know that sounds crazy, but if you write 2 to 3 sentences on the game you were just on, I can recall back times where that's come up, and Eric has called me 3 months later and said, hey, you remember this game that you had down in Emmanuel? And I'll be like, oh yeah, man, it was raining, it was cold as shit, and it was muddy because they had the field had soaked up, rain for the last 2 weeks. And 48 had a slash and nailed number 2. I think that guy had a concussion, and I went and wrote that down in my little notebook or next to the game assignment, and just take a few notes. It's not a paragraph or a dissertation, just a couple of notes to make sure your mind remembers what you did.
Hey, Trey,
I'll leave it with you.
There is.
Yep.
Hey, Trey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Hey, the other thing, too, is you do have the spot in the arbiter where you can put notes into a game. You just want to leave notes for yourself. There's the option to do that, or even fill out a game report, even if you think it's not necessary. Ways to put these notes down if you think something might come up, too. And the only thing I will say to you guys is just communicate. When it's about this or issues, the main thing is when coaches yell or there's problems, it's because there's a lack of communication. So.
Herbert, you got anything else you want to add to this?
Yeah, I guess in closing, thanks for all you guys chiming in and listening, letting Trey and myself give you some insights on what we have, and we definitely appreciate your input in this presentation as well. Because the main thing, a good R is a person who still listens and learns. So as you go out there and you get the R assigned to you in that arbiter, take it with a sense of pride, but also that you're a vessel to the growth of the game from the officiating standpoint. And as you get out there and do more games as R, you'll develop your style. And whatever style it is, make sure it's conducive to the game. And like Trey said, at the end of the day, you want to slip in and slip out. We're not the Ed Hockleys, in football. They didn't come to see us. We want to get in there and stay unnoticed. But take the opportunity to, in this avenue in lacrosse, because everything happens so quick, 2 or 3 games a week, 2 of the different crew members, make sure you go out there and nurture the other officials that you have out there, because at the end of the day, we need officials to do ball games. And there's a lot of things going out there now that are causing people to decide not to officiate. And so let's make sure we are not one of the reasons why they don't want to officiate. We want to make sure they go out and want to officiate and go get some other people to officiate with us as well.
Awesome. Guys, anything else you guys want to talk about post game? I want to hit on Pat just mentioned to make sure that you're communicating, guys. There's no telling how many times I've called Pat after a game just to give him, hey, this coach may be calling you because this happened. Minor incident, but it's just a good heads up. It's a good practice, and that lets Pat know that when this crazy ass coach reaches out to him about an offsides in the third quarter, that the dude's just crazy and has lost his mind, right? There's tape out there now. Don't do anything dumb, right, guys? Don't do anything that makes the news. I say tape because I'm dating myself here, but I mean, there's phones, right? There's phones everywhere. Everybody's filming everything. And you should always think about they're filming me right now. And what would I want this to look like? So with that said, anybody else got anything that they would like to ask? Questions open forum here.
Hey, Trey.
Yep.
Landon sent a link in the chat about possible pregame changes. Were you guys going to be hitting on that, or is that going to be something else?
I think that we've left that to next week as far as our pregame changes for COVID. Is that what you're referencing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think that we're going to do a COVID discussion here, right? Is that right, Pat? Yeah.
Yeah. So I know Lance submitted information to the state. We're waiting on approval. So that's kind of the hold up on all the COVID questions that we had earlier. And we're hoping to have an answer tomorrow or early next week. So as soon as we do any adjustments to any rules or anything else, that'll all be communicated before the start of the season.
Are we going to have a special COVID related meeting regarding the changes in policies and all that, or is it just going to be emailed?
I believe it's just going to be emailed. But it depends how detailed it is. If it's just a couple things, they'll be emailed. If we need to have a conversation, we'll set up something. Sorry, Trey.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say, Pat. I think, and guys, I want you guys to know that we've been meeting constantly on as a board as far as preparing for this thing, and wish we had more answers for you. Obviously, with football, the GHSA, prioritizes that, and then they literally just kind of make decisions on a week by week basis, and it kind of we're getting fed information as quickly, and we're turning around to you guys as quickly as we can. So, but like Pat said, as soon as we get some more information, we'll either be communicating that through email and on the website, and if also needed, we will also hold a meeting or do something else to kind of make sure that everybody's on the same page from the COVID protocols. Good question, though. Anything else?
All right. Thanks, guys. Be safe out there.
Yeah, awesome, guys. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Good job tonight, guys.
See you guys.
Same to you guys.
Good, guys.
Good job, Trey.
Thanks, Trey.
Thanks, Sam.